The wind howled through the barren trees, its mournful wail echoing in the desolate night. I stood at the gates of the old manor, my heart pounding in my chest like a trapped animal. My breath hung in the frigid air, a visible reminder of my fear. Why had I agreed to come here? The stories I'd heard about this place were enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. The manor stood tall and imposing, its dark, weather-beaten facade looming over me like a silent sentinel of doom. Its windows were like vacant eyes, staring out into the night with an eerie emptiness. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, as if the very walls of the manor held secrets that it was itching to reveal. My friends and I had come here seeking a thrill, a macabre adventure on Halloween night. We'd heard tales of the old manor being haunted, of strange occurrences that defied explanation. It was said that the spirits of its former occupants still roamed its halls, trapped in a never-ending torment. As I stood there, my fingers gripping the rusted iron gates, I couldn't help but wonder if we had made a terrible mistake. I turned to my friends, their faces pale in the dim moonlight. Sarah, the bravest among us, tried to hide her unease with a forced smile. "Come on, guys," she said, her voice quivering slightly. "This is what we came for, right? A real Halloween scare." I nodded, trying to muster some courage. Jack and Emily, our other companions, exchanged nervous glances, but didn't object. We had come this far, and there was no turning back now. With trembling hands, I pushed the creaking gates open, and we entered the manor's overgrown garden. The crunch of dead leaves underfoot was deafening in the stillness of the night. The manor itself seemed to absorb the sound, its oppressive silence pressing down on us like a leaden weight. We approached the front door, the wood groaning in protest as Jack turned the ornate handle. It opened with a slow, eerie creak, revealing a dimly lit foyer beyond. The air inside was damp and musty, like the breath of some ancient beast. We hesitated for a moment, but our curiosity got the better of us and we stepped inside. The foyer was grand but in a state of disrepair. Faded wallpaper peeled from the walls, and cobwebs hung like drapes from the ornate chandeliers. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and a chill settled into my bones. "Let's stick together," I whispered to my friends, my voice barely audible. They nodded in agreement, and we crept further into the manor. Each step sent a shiver down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. As we explored the dark corridors and dimly lit rooms, the manor seemed to come alive with a sinister energy. Shadows danced in the corners of our vision, and strange whispers filled the air. Too faint to decipher, but too chilling to ignore. Emily clutched my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. "I don't like this, guys," she said, her voice quivering. "We should go back." But we pressed on, our curiosity driving us deeper into the heart of the manor. We had heard tales of a hidden room, a place where the manor's darkest secrets were said to be kept. It was said that those who dared to enter that room would never be the same again. After what felt like hours, we stumbled upon a narrow staircase leading down into the bowels of the manor. The air grew colder with each step, and a sense of dread settled over us like a heavy cloak. At the bottom of the stairs, we found a heavy oak door, its surface etched with strange symbols. "This must be it," Jack whispered, his voice barely audible. He reached for the door handle, and as he turned it, the door swung open with an eerie groan. The room beyond was bathed in a sickly green light, emanating from an ancient lantern hanging from the ceiling. The walls were covered in faded, cryptic symbols, and a sense of malevolence hung in the air. In the center of the room stood a large, ornate mirror, its surface dark and foreboding. Sarah stepped closer to the mirror, her reflection wavering as if underwater. She reached out to touch it, her fingers brushing the cold glass. As she did, the room seemed to come alive with whispered voices, a cacophony of tortured souls trapped in the mirror's depths. Aghast, we watched as Sarah's reflection twisted and contorted, her face morphing into a grotesque, nightmarish visage. She screamed, and we tried to pull her away from the mirror, but it was as if an invisible force held her in place. Her screams grew louder, more agonized, until they were drowned out by a chorus of anguished voices. In a final, horrifying moment, Sarah's reflection reached out of the mirror, its twisted hand wrapping around her throat. With a sickening crack, her body slumped to the ground, lifeless. The room fell silent once more, the eerie green light flickering and fading. Terror gripped us, and we fled the room, stumbling through the dark corridors of the manor. But the manor itself seemed to conspire against us, its layout shifting and changing, leading us deeper into its nightmarish depths. As we stumbled into yet another dimly lit chamber, we realized with horror that we were not alone. Shadows moved in the corners of the room, taking shape and form. The spirits of the manor's tormented past were emerging from the darkness, their eyes filled with malice. They closed in on us, their ghostly hands reaching out to touch us, to pull us into their eternal torment. We screamed and fought back, but it was as if we were trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. I felt a cold hand close around my wrist, its grip like ice. I turned to see the face of a woman, her features twisted in anguish. She whispered a name that sent shivers down my spine. It was the name of my long-dead grandmother, a woman I had never known. The spirits seemed to feed on our fear, growing stronger with each passing moment. We were powerless against them, our screams falling on deaf ears. In that moment of sheer terror, I realized that we had stumbled upon something far more sinister than we had ever imagined. And then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, it stopped. The spirits retreated into the shadows, their malevolent presence dissipating. We were left trembling and gasping for breath, our minds reeling from the horrors we had witnessed. We fled the manor, never looking back, never speaking of that night again. But the memories haunted us, nightmares that refused to fade. We had dared to seek a thrill, an adventure on Halloween night, but what we had found was a darkness beyond imagination. To this day, the old manor stands, its secrets hidden from the world. And I am left with a chilling certainty that some doors are best left unopened, some mysteries better left unsolved. The manor's secrets remain, buried in the shadows, waiting for the next unwitting soul to stumble upon them. And I can only hope that they have the sense to turn and run, to escape the malevolent grasp of the old manor's dark and twisted history.